The second half of the dynamic duo is Gail Chaddock-Costello. Gail?
I guess she gets to be Batwoman and I'm Robin because I'm shorter. Okay, here we go. I first of all want to thank the BCTF for providing me the opportunity to speak with you today. And I also want to commend you all for being committed enough to still be here at 4:30 on a Saturday afternoon. I know you're here and I'm here because we are both committed to the idea that we should be able to provide the best possible public education system for all of the students in the province of British Columbia. We're also all here together today to work towards bringing authenticity back to student assessment. And we can work collectively and cooperatively. Parents, teachers, students, politicians, trustees, some of whom have joined us and taken time out of their weekend to be with us here today. We can do this together because we have a common bond. And that bond is our commitment to providing the best possible public education system in Canada, right here in the province of British Columbia. We have a great slogan, and it's called Kids Matter, Teachers Care. And I'm not here to try and convince you that some children are worth more than others, but I am here as a veteran special education teacher of 29 years to be the voice of some children who often don't have the ability or the personal presence to be able to speak on their own behalf. These are the extraordinary children that the ministry designates as our special needs students. And they too are suffering at the hand of the ministry's demand for more provincially standardized accountability, more time spent on assessments, and much more complicated, and multifaceted individual education plans. As an example, the forms and the boards you see in front of you are representative of a sample, and it is truly a sample of the forms that resource specialists and LA teachers who are working with special education students must complete in order to comply with the ministry-mandated accountability agenda. I counted them, and the basic IEP package, if I did all of the forms for one child, was 40 forms. When you multiply that by the fact that many teachers in districts, after our contracts were stripped, now have caseloads of 35, 45, one man that I can speak of with personal knowledge has 60 in Langley, you can understand why people are overwhelmed and why they resent the fact that this accountability agenda is taking time away from their students. And the other part of that is, while we're all away, while the resource teachers, the learning assistance teachers, the school counselors, the child care workers, the Aboriginal support staff, while we're all off somewhere doing all of this important work, like filling out all of these forms to be filed somewhere in a file cabinet, who is taking care of the children? Well, the notion that it takes a village to raise a child really resonates with me. But I'm afraid that recently the village has been vacant and the children have been left to fend for themselves. And I don't mean that quite literally, almost, but not quite. But what is happening is that the situation is so bad that some of our administrators have actually felt the need, surprise, surprise, to step forward and offer a solution. But their idea of a solution is to remove the specialist from in front of the classroom and replace that specialist with a teacher on call. And this is not any condemnation of teachers on call. They come in and do a fabulous job for us in the best way that they can. But unfortunately, when you bring in a TOC to replace a specialist like myself who deals with low incidence children, and those are the students amongst our population who are the lowest functioning physically and academically, and sometimes both, it's very difficult for them to come in and meet the demands of those students. And not because they're not capable and not because they're not trying, but because they don't have what we call it. And the it, in fact, is the relationship that it takes time to develop between student and child so that they will give you their trust and they will allow you to get close enough to them emotionally to be able to provide the kind of specialized, individualized, personal attention and care and focus on their individualized education plan in the way that only a teacher who knows them well can do. But since we are mandated by the ministry to provide this paperwork to them, we are left with a few choices. We either don't do it, which we choose not to do, because therefore then we would have some of our students writing provincial exams without adjudication forms in place. Part of this plethora of paper you see here that documents the needs, which have frankly already been documented year after year after year after year at the local level and the ministry level, but we do it once again every time any child writes one of these exams in grade 10, grade 11, grade 12. So a resource teacher at some high school could end up doing a set of these papers, which is mammoth in and of itself, for a child who writes an exam 2 or 3 or 4 times a year. And in a semester at school, double that again. So the workload continues to pile up, the time away from the children increases, and they are the people who lose. I think it's important that we keep the specialists close enough to the kids that they can be cognizant of what their needs are. I think all of us who have worked with special needs children, either as a specialist teacher or with them in the classroom, I think all of you who are the parent of a special needs child and live daily with the blessings as well as the difficulties of raising and teaching a special needs child are aware of the fact that when they do it for you. And you are the person they work for best. And this doing it, this it that I talk about, this something they accomplish, can be anything from struggling to stay on task, to actually completing an assignment on time, or to managing that fabulous new piece of technology that they've been given that allows them to ride their motorized wheelchair to the cafeteria all on their own and line up like any other student with their tray and order lunch. And the fact that they're able to do that without the ever-present and concerned SEA hovering at their side is a huge accomplishment for many children. And so when we take the specialists away because they need to finish all the bureaucratic paperwork, we remove from the presence of those children the people who are most likely to help them reach the goals that they and their parents and their social workers and their child care workers and the community of people who support them have set for them. So in my opinion, I would have said until a few days ago, one of the very worst things the ministry has done to special needs children has taken away that quality time that they have to work with the specialists who are there to keep track of their needs and to provide for them in the best way they know how. However, I unfortunately went to a meeting on Monday afternoon. I was going to skip it, and I'm glad that I didn't. It was a district meeting in Langley for district resource teachers. And one of the things that I was made aware of when I was there was the fact that even though the ministry has said every other student in the province of British Columbia may choose to take a standing granted for the portfolio program, am I trying to say that we should take it for granted? I guess not. But there is unfortunately one group of students who don't have that option. The low incidence students that I teach, and these are the children who are physically challenged, emotionally challenged, mentally challenged to the highest degree. Low incidence meaning we are likely to have few of them in any district. They must, if they want to get their, not a dogwood, but a school leaving certificate, if they want that piece of paper after having been in school for 13 years, in order to cross that stage, they must complete, this document. And if they don't complete this document, they don't get that piece of paper. And this document, this portfolio, modified as it may be, requires us, which would be the specialist teachers and the SEAs who have nothing else to do with our time, to gather up all the documentation to prove that some of our children who arrive to school as quadriplegic children will, in wheelchairs or some of them on stretcher beds, that they have fulfilled the aspect for art and design. Some of them don't write so well. Some of them don't speak at all. That they have community involvement and have demonstrated responsibility. That they have their education and career planning in place. That I can document all of their employability skills and where they've gone for work experience. That they have some success with information technology, and that they have personal health goals. Well, they probably all have that, but beside it, it writes they have completed up to, and here it is, 80 hours of physical activity. Okay. Well, I'm not quite sure if tapping on your reset button on the computer counts, but for some of my students, that's about as physical as they get. Should they not, or should the SEAs and the specialists not have the time to complete this, it's not a dogwood diploma they're missing out on. It's the piece of paper that says they've been with us in our system by our side for the past 13 years. And for that, they get a school leaving certificate. They can't use that to apply to any college or university. In fact, it's, if anything, simply ceremonial, so that they get to be part of the graduation exercise as they walk across the stage with their peers. The ministry sees it as leveling the playing field. If everybody who's in a low incidence program has to complete one of these, then we know those teachers have been doing something, don't we? I guess they don't figure that the rest of the forms here in the IEPs constitute much work. I'd like to see one of them come to my room and try and fill out one in a day. That would be a challenge. This just constitutes, again, another tragedy for the most needy students. It's one other piece of bureaucracy that's been laid on us by the ministry that takes time away from the neediest of students and reduces, once again, our opportunity to build relationships with these kids so that they can and will do for us the kind of things they are able to do to meet their real objectives, which are itemized on their individualized education plan. Now, I probably sound just a tad angry and a little bit negative, so I want to leave you with some notions that all is not black and dark in the world. There are some things that we can do to be proactive, and in some instances, as in Monday's disaster, reactive. And I think the things that we can do are for parents to support the specialists in their schools. I think they need to gain an understanding of the workload they're under, and I think they need to be lobbying their principals and their school trustees and their politicians and their MLAs and anybody that they can think of to lobby to look at the working and learning conditions for teachers, because that directly affects the kind of quality support they can give to their students. I think that when parents and teachers and community members work together on behalf of these kids, a lot can be accomplished. I think the parents of special needs students are often very stressed. And I think it's important for them to realize that there are already existing support networks and agencies out there for everything from Asperger's to autism to fetal alcohol syndrome to severe giftedness, and they are called children. Children are called that, severely gifted. So no matter what label your child has placed upon them, there are agencies out there that are ready and willing to have you join and be a member so that they can lobby on your behalf. You are not alone. And I think it's important to go out there and support them so that they can support you, so that we can all be supporting one another. I guess in closing, I'd just like to thank you all for being here. I think it's a very important concept that we're battling, the bureaucracy of the ministry, the accountability agenda, reaching down to our lowest and most neediest level of students. So I thank you for your commitment. I thank you for being here. And I'd frankly like to challenge you to take our game plan form here out of your little binder. Don't forget that it's there, and don't take it home and tuck it away. Fill it out, do something with it, and go out there and make your voice be heard and do something that will actually make a difference in the life of a child. Thank you.